Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
We're live at the Miami Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio, the Neil Haley Show. 8 years we've been broadcasting. We've interviewed so many people, from the most interesting to the most intriguing to people who are very different. So that's what I always say in the stories, Eric, that we have, from interviewing William Ayers to interviewing the person that knew one of the greatest murderers in the world. So, you know, it's just an interesting process, right? Who we've interviewed in the Miami Book Fair, and they expect every year who's going to come on, right?
Absolutely.
Who's the friend of the greatest murderer?
Oh, what's his name? See, my brain is just not working. Eric's going to jump into it. The movie was came out last year. He was at the Miami Book Fair, and we interviewed him about his graphic.
Yeah, it was.
What?
It was the graphic.
Oh, it was Dahmer.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, Dahmer. Yeah,
Yep.
the Dahmer author.
Yep.
And we still can't find that interview.
Yeah.
Did you ever find that? Yeah. I ended up interviewing...
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, go there.
It was John Bechter.
Go ahead.
Right?
No, we found it.
We did? Okay, you have to get that to me. I'll play it. No, I ended up interviewing the person who got the movie started. Oh, my gosh, when he connected with him. And that was just an interesting story.
Yeah.
And because he's a graphic novelist like yourself, I'm sure you know him then, right? Am I correct?
I haven't met him in person, but we follow each other on Twitter, John Bechter.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Michael Kupperman, thanks for coming on the show. As we get into conversations, you'll learn really quickly, Michael. It's like having a beer, coffee, or whatever you call it, or smoking a cigar when you talk to me. So that's what's nice about my interviews, is it's about a conversation. There's no nervousness. There's no I'm going to go and put you on the spot. We're going to have a conversation like we're friends. So this is the first time you've been to Miami for the book fair, Michael?
No, I was here a few years ago for my book, Mark Twain's Autobiography, 1910-2010. I think that was 2011. Or no, it was 2010, right? I'm not sure. One of those years.
So 2010. So it was 2010. So it was the year we were in Miami, Eric. Because every year we've been in our studios afterwards. But Eric and I met for the first time. We flew out to Miami. We covered it. It was craziness. Some very interesting interviews. We were in right where the green room is, close to the green room. Eric and I had our little area, and we had a blast. And since then, we've continued to do it. And then I could see my daughters and kids volunteering at the Miami Book Fair years later. I hope so, because it's just such a great event. So tell us, Michael, specifically how you became a graphic novelist.
I went to art school, but for something else, and then it was after art school that I realized I didn't know, what I wanted to do, and I kind of drifted into it almost. I was in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Some other people were putting together a Xerox comic book. They asked if I wanted to be involved, and I started doing stuff for it, and started to feel like it was a way to actually do stuff that was interesting and would connect with people.
Very interesting, very interesting. And once you figured that out, graphic novelists have become very big, Michael, right? The evolution in the last 10 years is amazing, isn't it?
I think it's still just beginning. I think it's beginning. I think it's just taking off, really. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not, it still hasn't reached the level of being kind of ranked alongside serious fiction very often or nonfiction. But I think it's going to get there. It's just, it's still evolving. It's still kind of in the, zap, pow, bang, comics aren't just for kids anymore phase, It's
transitioning. And plus, I think you have a generational gap, too. I just turned 40. I grew up on comic books. I'd go my allowance and buy them and read them and enjoy them. And I think now the younger generations, with especially the advent of all these comics turning into movies, now it's becoming, like a mainstream thing, and it's just part of what they do. Part of culture now.
Absolutely, and there's so much online now. There's so many online comics. It's become kind of different cultures next to each other, and it just keeps expanding. It's impossible to keep track of these days.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're everywhere.
Absolutely. So, Michael, let's talk about your work and stuff. What is your current graphic novel about?
Well, my current graphic novel, it's my first serious book after doing 4 or 5 very silly books, and it's the story of my father. It took me 5 years to do, between the research and the interviews and then, just writing it and then drawing it. It was a very long process, but it started out as an attempt to try to understand my father's childhood, because he was a very famous child prodigy in the 1940s and into the early 50s, and he was on this radio show and then later TV show called Quiz Kids for all that time, and he was very famous for a while, and it had been a forbidden subject in our family for a really long time. And he had reached a point where he didn't seem to care anymore, so I felt like I could go ahead and start really looking at it. And as I started to look at it, he developed dementia, which meant that there wasn't much time to ask him any questions I might have. Mm-hmm. So, and then I realized, investigating his past, that he'd been much more famous than I had understood ever, and also that it had severely traumatized him, and that in some ways even some of the trauma had been passed on to me because he'd been so hurt by the experience.
Interesting. So that serious book, adding that component, tell us about the research for the book, Michael.
Well, it was really, there's a mountain of stuff if you start to look online, and then I was doing research at the Paley Center and other places that have a lot of old media. But it wasn't until I found these scrapbooks that his mother had kept, that he'd hidden away in his study, like really hidden, that I was able to complete the research and really understand the context. But part of what was going on was that, he's Jewish. My mother is Scandinavian, and I'd been brought up not to think of myself as Jewish, basically. At best, half Jewish, although I've been told by some people that isn't a thing. It was only when I factored in the Judaism into his fame that it started to make sense how famous he'd been, and the idea that he might have been even propaganda, because it was World War II, and he was a very cute Jewish kid. That it started to go in another direction. And it was the scrapbooks, finding these scrapbooks, which had been literally hidden, which brought it all together. And after that, I was able to start actually writing the book.
Right. Do you illustrate it as well, Michael, or does someone else do that?
No, it's all me. I wrote and illustrated. I did every element of the book by hand, everything except the barcode. That's
definitely an impressive part of it, for sure. Yeah, I mean, to think about
I'm
Michael,
exhausted. I'm still worn out. Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely. It's a lot of work. How's the family received the book since you published it?
I was a little worried about my mother, but she seemed to take it well, and actually is quite proud. And as far as the other elements of the family, they all agree, and some of them I think it's really... I think even with my mother, it's actually changed her picture of who my father was, which is very interesting. Wow. Because I don't think she saw some of what... Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think she saw some of what I was coming up with. And at first, the other families were like, what? That doesn't sound right. And then, once I'd really presented the research and laid it all out, they were convinced, of what his role had been and what it had done to him, really. But it's fascinating because he was in early show business, and there's a lot I didn't put in the book because it's not a book about 30s and 40s show business. But he met so many famous people and had so many amazing experiences. It was just frustrating to try to get his perspective on them.
And getting that perspective is for sure. And this is a little deeper of a book, Michael, right, for a graphic novel. Not usual.
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty
novels,
deep.
I'd like to, yeah.
It's meant to make you feel sad.
But how many have done that in graphic novels to make you sad, in a way? Or are you seeing
I don't
a variety
think so many. I honestly feel like in some ways it's a newish type of graphic novel because I wrote it to be very, very easy to read, even if you have never read a graphic novel before. And I've had people who have never read a graphic novel before tell me they read it in one sitting. One guy said his father devoured it in half an hour, which I take as a massive compliment. I mean, that means you're really, concentrating hard. So I tried to make something sort of new, like a graphic novel that could really be easily read and would drag you along. So what I was trying to do was make people feel, what I felt from all this, which, mixed emotions, obviously.
Definite mixed emotions. And so what have your other colleagues in the field said about you taking it to this next level? Do you see other authors, graphic novelists, go this direction now with deeper books?
No, I have to say reaction among the comics community has been a little slow or non-existent. Outside of that, I've been getting reactions from people every day saying that, the book moved them, they wanted to give it to their father. I mean, in a way, it's a book about father-son relations, and it's about it's about me trying to connect with my father and realizing that may be impossible because of what, was done to him early on. So I think I've been getting a lot of reactions on the one side from people who have read it and are moved. And then, in comics, not so much. So I don't know. I think it hasn't quite sunk through to them yet, maybe.
Then that's really fascinating to think about that. But hopefully we're going to look into those different directions for sure, Michael, and more people are going to go to that deeper effect in fathers and sons and their relationships. And Michael, because your father was famous in certain aspects and very busy, is this something that is a tribute towards him in a way too? Not just something where you and didn't get the opportunity to connect the way you wanted to connect and have regrets? Is this book is something to kind of bring you for closure, but also for you to honor him in so many ways?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's the book's really about him and me, and then his childhood. There's not a lot of his teaching career. I do have a bit about it. He was a philosopher. He wrote a lot of books. He was, his students really loved them, and that's something I didn't have in the book. But it's definitely it's a sympathetic portrait. It's not about how defective he was. It's in some ways almost a heroic portrait of someone who struggled despite the fact that he'd been really set up, very badly by being, on radio and TV from when he was 5 years old to when he was 16,
Wow.
And then by the time he was done on that show, ordinary kids hated him, which,
really?
you can see in movies. Yeah, you can see in movies like Woody Allen's Radio Days. There's a kid who's definitely supposed to be him, who's really loathsome. And that symbolizes what other kids thought of him. So he had a really rough time after he left the show.
That's
but he was one of those people
in so many ways. Yeah.
But he was one of those people.
Yeah.
Well, they hated him because he'd been used as an example for them. For years. You can find cartoons of it, but parents telling their kids, "Why can't you be smart like Joel Kupperman?" And I think that he was like the standard. So,
wow.
a big mistake was going on TV after, 10 years on the radio show, because that really made him a visible target. He was on very early TV, but everyone knew what he looked like,
Well, okay, Michael, best place we can find information on you. Are you going to go next book and let's find more information, but I have one more question before that. Are we going to go back to some of our other types of graphic novels moving forward? Do you have another one in the works?
I'm really not sure. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about doing something different maybe, but there is still more I want to say, because when you start investigating your family, it really can, you come up with a lot of material and a lot of conclusions, and some of them I still want to follow. Yeah.
Oh, so there could be a follow-up book involving this, maybe further
there might be,
in his career.
Yeah.
You never know, right?
Well, in his career, and also, what the results were on me, and kind of on the next generation. Because I do think it's interesting, the things that parents pass to their children and so on. And as a parent myself, I'm trying to avoid, these big mistakes I feel my parents made.
All right. Best place we can find info on you. Where can we go, Michael?
MichaelKupperman.com.
All right, Michael.
And,
well, I'm going to look up...
On...
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I'm on Twitter too, of course, at Michael Kupperman, or at M Kupperman. Sorry.
All right, Michael. And looking back, I'm looking forward to looking at the history of your father and that time when he was really a success in those days. And thanks for calling, and best of luck. And we'll see where you're going next. But thanks for coming on the show, and enjoy Miami.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care. All right, see you guys. Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Neil Haley Show, powered by Life Improvement Radio, live from the Miami Book Fair. We'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.